President, do you still love WikiLeaks?
I know nothing about WikiLeaks. It's not my thing.
This just came out. WikiLeaks. I love WikiLeaks.
I know nothing really about them. It's not my deal in life. WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks. That came out on WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks. Boy, I love reading those WikiLeaks.
Mr. President, do you still love WikiLeaks?
I know nothing about WikiLeaks. It's not my thing.
Do you still love WikiLeaks out there, ladies and gentlemen, or is it not your thing anymore because of this president? Many of you are unsure about these vaccines that are coming, but this president sure wants you to get one before Election Day. Maybe we should be paying more attention to what this president is saying, ladies and gentlemen, because it seems that what he says one day isn't what he says the next day. What does that mean? What does that mean when somebody tells you something one day and then tells you something completely different the next day? Are we to trust this president, ladies and gentlemen? Let's go back into the time machine and figure this out.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask.
For months, they were telling people that you don't need to wear a mask. And yet, just the other day, we heard this. Oh, the video guy is fired. That's what we heard. Fired.
This is stuff that everyone knew. There's a report that I have here someplace where China said it was airborne earlier than the statements I made. People knew it was airborne. This was nothing. This was no big. When I say it was airborne, everybody knew it was airborne. This was no big thing.
So how come they told people they don't need to wear a mask? If it's airborne and everybody knew, why did they tell you that you don't need to wear a mask? Why is it that one day they tell you they love WikiLeaks and the next day they tell you they don't love WikiLeaks? Why is it that one day they tell us that we love the Kurds and the next day we're throwing the Kurds into the slaughterhouse? Maybe we should have been paying more attention to what Donald Trump was selling before all of this happened. Because now, we didn't get Hillary for prison. We didn't get the wall. We got 5G everywhere. And even better, now he's like, he wants to kill Julian Assange. And it's look, there's a lot of journalists and publishers that I don't like out there, but perhaps, you shouldn't stop with Julian Assange. I mean, what about Nancy Pelosi? And what about, Adam Schiff and all of these people, in California? Why stop with Julian Assange? That's the question. Maybe he's not stopping with Julian Assange. Maybe that's another question. Maybe we've got, a genocidal, president on our hands, ladies and gentlemen. Would that surprise any of you? I mean, they didn't lock up Hillary. They let her go. They locked up Julian Assange. They're rolling out death towers. They're like, oh yeah, you don't need to wear a mask. Just wash your hands. And even now, he's trying to get people infected in his rallies. How many people got infected in his rallies? He had Herman Cain that was killed due to a Trump rally. They say many others probably as well. How many people does Donald Trump want to kill? We don't know. But maybe we should, ask that question.
States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
People should not be walking around with masks. Why is that?
That was fooling around with these viruses. Prohibited. despite that, Dr. Fauci gave $3.7 million to the Wuhan laboratory. We paid for it. We paid for the damn virus that's killing us.
So Fauci paid for this virus, and he's telling everybody we don't need to wear a mask. And Trump is like, oh, well, everybody knew it was airborne. Why aren't they so worried about it? Because they've got the antidote. I mean, they've been lying to you since the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. We know this came from a lab. We know that this is another 9/11. The planes are 20 miles out. The planes are 10 miles out. Do the orders still stand, ladies and gentlemen? Of course, the orders still stand. And now everybody's been infected with their virus. And they're like, oh, you just got to wait for the vaccine. Well, look, a vaccine is a prophylaxis. That's good before you get the disease, not after you get the disease. And everybody's been infected with this virus, ladies and gentlemen. The Trump Gates virus, the Trump Fauci virus. And they've been playing us since the beginning, just like the WikiLeaks, just like the 5G. In fact, it really started in the first few months of the Trump administration. You had this, Gladio B gas attack in Syria, and then they sent in cruise missiles when it was like the white helmets and the British the whole time. This guy has been in the cahoots with the New World Order since the beginning. That's why you're getting the 5G. And that's why they're letting Hillary go. That's why they didn't actually build the wall. They just tell you what you want to hear. Politics is owned. They own you. And right now we're just like cows grazing in the pasture. Nobody wants to see creepy Biden win. But I'll tell you what, Donald Trump deserves to lose. This guy did everything he could to mess it up, and big time too. And everybody's, been thrown off the internet basically with Negro status, no conservatives allowed. And he's just handing America over to these pedophiles on a silver platter. Nobody could have done it like Donald Trump. And no matter what happens in this election, it's going to be civil war. I mean, this guy totally destroyed everything. And, in less than 4 years, that's quite a feat. Donald Trump destroys America in 4 years. As much as you like him, you have to realize that, this guy is not on our side, ladies and gentlemen, and it's only going to get worse. And I don't necessarily like, everything Julian Assange published. I totally, get the fact that he's, a liberal, but essentially, they were setting that guy up since the beginning, going after him, making up all sorts of things. And, now we finally find out why. It's because, he was exposing the war crimes. And so, Donald Trump didn't want to investigate the war crimes of 9/11, the Iraq war, what happened in Syria, all of that. Obama is ISIS. He didn't want to, put Hillary in prison. He wants to go after the journalists and roll out death towers and make sure everybody's infected with their virus. And he's genociding, the Kurds and who knows who else, in the process. This isn't, what we're looking for in leadership. But just to make sure that you don't vote for anybody else, here comes, Vice President Creepy Biden to keep you in check. And you're like, oh, anything but Biden. And so we're just stuck. This is the best we got, ladies and gentlemen. Be sure to get an EMF 390 if you haven't already. You really want to know what you're getting dosed with out there. We can't emphasize that enough. Only $129 on our website right now. Check that out. It blows away the competition. And, what we're seeing out there in terms of dosing is hardcore. It's a bad trip, to say the least. And you really want to limit your exposure, because if it's not the virus, then it's definitely the cell phones and the death towers, ladies and gentlemen.
The side effects for the Moderna vaccine sound concerning. We looked. After the second dose, at least 80% of participants experienced a systemic side effect. Are these vaccines safe?
Well, the things are, Moderna did have to go with a fairly high dose. None of the vaccines at this point appear like they'll work with a single dose. That was the hope at the very beginning. We hope just 2, although in the elderly, sometimes it takes more.
Well, I want to ask you, you mentioned side effects. The side effects for the Moderna vaccine sound concerning. We looked. After the second dose, at least 80% of participants experienced a systemic side effect. Are these vaccines safe?
Well, the things are, Moderna did have to go with a fairly high dose.
Are these vaccines safe? Well, they did have to go with a really high dose. We're lucky that, people survived at all, is basically what he's saying there. And, they're all selling you the same vaccine. They're going to make trillions of dollars. You can't even, understand what that represents. But it's like, a fleet of airliners, essentially. We're talking massive amounts of money that they're going to steal from people after making them sick. And it's just so disturbing on every level. It's just, you just can't take it anymore. I certainly can't go with, the bandwagon anymore. It doesn't matter how bad the other guy is. They all suck. They all suck. And to be quite honest with you, we deserve better. But you look at the people out there, for the most part, and you're screwed. You're screwed. I mean, it's either Ron Johnson for president or, you're headed for the gas chamber. One way or the other, ladies and gentlemen. Just wait until they tell you that COVID is a chronic, zombie-like disease and that all positive cases must be exterminated. That's coming, to say the least. And it's begun.
Ramping up contact tracing.
So now the state is offering you the chance to be a disease detective.
If you've observed recurring violations of the Safer at Home order, we need to make sure that everybody continues to let us know where those folks are.
And this is how it's going to be. We will shut you down.
We will shut you down. We will irradiate you. We will arrest you. We will isolate you. We will quarantine you. We will take your rights away. We will infect you. We will dose you. We will, fluoridate you. We will do you in if you do not comply. We will discriminate against you. We will take your money. We will take your jobs, and it's basically hardcore Negro status. You are less than a Negro in America if you're a conservative or a truther out there, and it's disturbing. It's disturbing to see all of these truth tellers, basically like refugees out there trying to avoid extermination. And essentially, we're all on the red list, ladies and gentlemen. Based on our Facebook profiles and the like, we're all being targeted, and you can bet that the worst is yet to come. And allowing this system to continue is essentially a death wish for everyone out there. And, we'll have an opportunity this November to change things, but it's not the way you might think. Let the Democrats and Republicans fight it out in, the post-election world. And we'll just be there to mop up, because it's going to get ugly one way or the other. The communists are coming. The patriots are coming. And, just like every war, you've got, the elite and the masterminds essentially sitting on the sidelines, rubbing their hands together, watching the gladiators just kind of, go at it. And I think people first and foremost need to rise up against this system. All these people on TV, all of these, politicians, bureaucrats, they've got to go. And that's just the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. But, the virus is here to do the job for you. Hopefully you'll survive the dark winter and, can participate in the reconstruction. Any case, ladies and gentlemen, these people are not to be trusted. It's problem, reaction, solution. They start the fires. They call it climate change. They infect people. They call it a pandemic. They essentially, send out the active shooters and then come on television and say they need to take your guns. That's the kind of people that we're up against. And this system isn't going to change. And it doesn't really matter if, Julian Assange and others are libtards, controlled opposition, or even, traitors, really, because at the end of the day, journalism is a protected right. It's fundamental to our process. And when they start going after journalism, when they start shutting down people's free speech, that's a whole different problem. That's a whole different type of treason. And people can be wagging their fingers and exchanging accusations all day, but I think when it comes to the court of public opinion, for the most part, people out there agree with WikiLeaks. Even Donald Trump back in the day, just another flip-flop. Most people agree with what WikiLeaks did, especially in the early days, and they don't appreciate how this system has basically persecuted endless whistleblowers, and it might seem very insignificant at this stage given all that's happened, but it's just getting worse. The censorship is getting worse. This big government is getting worse, and the extermination process is only continuing, ladies and gentlemen.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
They only want their message out there. Nobody else has a right to speak. You must take the vaccine. You must, eat the GMOs, drink the fluoride. You must get irradiated with the 5G. It's insane out there. These people are insane, and something must happen, and it will happen. We can already see the civil war loom in this country, but it's a pandemic, and these people that are responsible need to be held accountable. They should be going after the war criminals instead of the journalists. And had they gone after Obama is ISIS, had they gone after weapons of mass destruction and all of that stuff, we might not be sitting in this pandemic right now. But eventually it's got to stop, ladies and gentlemen, and we got to stop it. We'll leave it there for this broadcast. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Until the next time, if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.